Hello, hello. Hi, hi, hi. Hello, welcome. I'm Jenny Gibbs. I'm the Executive Director of the IFPDA and the IFPDA Foundation, and it is my great honor, thank you, my great honor to introduce Jordan Schnitzer and Mickalene Thomas on the occasion of the spectacular installation I'm sure you've all seen outside, L'Espace entre les deux. The project was commissioned by the IFPDA, produced with the generous support of the Jordan Schnitzer Family Foundation, and organized by guest curator Sharon Copeland, with major production support by the studio and team at Two Palms. Since 2019, the IFPDA has been engaging artists actively involved in printmaking to create site-specific installations at the fair. To create installations that transcend the frame, engaging with visitors in a way that demonstrates the limitless potential of prints and printmaking. This project, L'Espace entre les deux, does all of that and more, pushing the conceptual boundaries of prints and printmaking. The author, Angela Flournoy, in Art News, speaks of the work as, quote, a living collage containing not a single narrative, but many layers of narrative possibility through a layering of three-dimensional cast paper, silkscreen, and collage. This amazing project would not have been possible without the boundless enthusiasm and unwavering support of Jordan Schnitzer, patron saint of prints and printmaking. Jordan, yes. Jordan Schnitzer is a West Coast businessman and philanthropist and president and CEO of Schnitzer Properties, one of the West Coast's largest real estate owners. Art has played an outsized role in Jordan's life from the beginning under the tutelage of his mother, the late Arlene Schnitzer, founder of Hayward Gallery in Portland, Oregon. North America's largest print collector and an Art News Top 200 collector, Jordan makes his private collection available to museums and institutions globally and supports many, many philanthropic initiatives. Most notably, Jordan has just made a profound and lasting mark on the landscape for prints and drawings by creating an endowed position at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Jordan Schnitzer Curator in the Department of Drawings and Prints, a position, woo, yeah.
Thank you.
A position currently held by Jennifer Farrell. Mickalene Thomas is a multidisciplinary artist known for her rhinestone-adorned portraits that redefine the representation of Black women in art. Her works explore identity, race, gender, and beauty, along with the complexities of Black female identity within Western culture, blending color, texture, and historical references to challenge traditional narratives. Through painting, collage, photography, and installation, Mickalene reclaims and elevates Black femininity in contemporary art. Beyond her artistic practice, Mickalene is a Tony-nominated co-producer, curator, and educator dedicated to amplifying underrepresented voices. She mentors emerging artists and curates exhibitions worldwide, supporting greater visibility for diverse creators. In 2023, she made history as the first Black, queer, femme artist to have a scholarship endowed at Yale University.
Thank you. Thank you. I wasn't getting up for that. I really needed the chair back.
Her work is featured in major institutions such as MoMA, the Whitney, and the Smithsonian. And with that, I'm going to get out of here and let them talk.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, and I think I know I can speak for Mickalene that we're thrilled that there's an overflow crowd, and thank you for taking the time to listen, and hope you walk away even more entranced with this really creative, amazing person. You might first ask, well, how did I get by her first work? And as Jenny said, I started buying prints and multiples in the late 80s. My first love is art of the Northwest, and while I've had 180 exhibitions all around the country of the biggest artists of our time, I always talk about the importance of supporting local artists, and you all should too. In the meantime, there's a wonderful publisher called Tandem at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Paula Pachenko ran that for 34 years. Now we have a wonderful new director, and I buy everything they do. She had a wonderful eye, and I think it was like 2012 or so, I was visiting and saw this work, didn't know who the person was, and just said, wow, I want that, and started buying her work. And then as I began to get to know her later in years, we've now been buying paintings and other work of hers. The way this came about, and it was, Jenny talked about it, was for a number of years I sponsored a lecture series here, but now there's so many lectures we thought maybe that doesn't make sense. So last year we took a booth and had the extraordinary work of Leonardo Drew. And for this year we thought, and Sharon Copeland came up with an idea, why don't we work with an artist and create a unique thing, a unique work of art for the show. And the first thought was Mickalene Thomas, and for all of you that have seen the extraordinary, beyond comprehension work that was created with her in Two Palms Press in her studio, there's nothing in the history of art making that has so profoundly, I think, pushed the envelope of works on paper in an extraordinary way. And I think what we'll also get to see is probably new things she'll do in the future that she learned from this. Well, I'll ask her about that in a second, and can't wait to see. So what I want to first ask her, and it's always interesting for me, because curators like to talk about the work. I'm not a curator. I always like to know about the person who behind the art. So starting with that, you were born in 1971 in Camden, New Jersey.
Telling my age.
No, boy, now I'm in trouble. Okay, we're going straight downhill from here.
I usually tell people I'm 35.
Oh, I thought you were 28.
Look at this.
Okay, so tell us about growing up and what was it like, and tell us about some influences as you look back that helped shape you into who you are.
Yeah, I grew up in Camden, New Jersey. I was born in Camden, New Jersey. All my family still lives in the Northeast area, all the way from, coming down from Connecticut, going to as far as Virginia. Most of my family resided in Philadelphia and the Camden area. Both sides of my parents' families. My grandfather was a pastor. They had a church. They were Pentecostal. My grandmother was conductor of the choir. So my mother was raised in a very religious household. She married young. She met my father at Camden High School. My father's family went to my mother's church, so that's how they met. My mother got pregnant young in high school, so she was forced to marry my father. That marriage did not work out, so my mother left my father when I was around 3 or 4 years old and moved up to northern Jersey, and we stayed with other family members who lived in like Newark and Hillside area, and so that's more where I grew up, but we would always go back to South Jersey to visit my family. And then at some point, my mother fell on hard times, and I ended up moving back with my grandmother on my father's side, on my paternal side, my grandmother Elizabeth Thomas. Both of my grandmothers are named Elizabeth, Elizabeth Bush and Elizabeth Thomas. And I lived with my grandmother Elizabeth Thomas up until I moved to Portland, Oregon. So I lived in Camden, but the environment that I grew up in, even though there was all of this fracturing and movement, there was always this familial and support and love around who we were as a family. And the women in my family are very maternal, and they run sort of our my grandmother and my aunts. They were the ones who really kept everything together. I had an aunt who went off to college, and she is a history major, so she was really the one who would bring everything to educate us. Just the environment was rich and full. My grandmother, when she retired, Elizabeth Thomas, she started working at Goodwill. She did not want to not work. And so she would collect a lot of fabrics. And so one of the things that I remember growing up in the environment was her always reupholstering the house, the furniture, laying fabric over quilts, making quilts. And so my environment was very colorful. It was very patterned. Her couches were always full with different texture and textiles. So you see a lot of that come through my environments today. And I think art is always an extension of yourself. Sometimes you don't necessarily know why you make things until you kind of draw back onto those moments of nostalgia or memory. You think about those moments of just like your grandmother laying a quilt over you as you're sleeping. Like those are formidable sort of creative moments because they're touch points of love and just comfort that provide sort of a sense of self that I think as an artist you can sort of tap into when you're thinking of ideas or modes of construct of how to make things. So the interior environment in the home became a very important, I guess, focus point of sort of working from it in my work for a long time. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it's fabulous.
But I think I'm just trying to think about all of those moments as a kid that really did inspire me. The Jet magazine was one of them, you know, Ebony magazine. Printed matter was a huge thing growing up. There was always, if you didn't have a Jet magazine or Ebony in your house in sort of urban environments, then something was pretty much wrong with you. I remember as a kid always flipping through or fighting my brother for this page, The Beauty of the Week. There was a section in there, The Beauty of the Week. But also what I loved about the Jet magazine, that it provided a sense of the world, politically, socially political issues. It provided a sense of an outlet of what musicians were doing, entertainers, politicians, Martin Luther King, you know, all of these things, seeing Emmett Till on a cover, like all of these things provided access and agency. So I use that as a tool in my work today. I think domesticity and those elements of the home become a starting point for me to work from in my work. And I think it has a lot to do with my relationship with my grandmother, Elizabeth Thomas. We were very close. I loved being around her. I loved listening to the stories. My grandmother, Elizabeth Thomas, left home when she was 13 and from Mississippi and walked most of her journey to get to where she is, you know, to get to the north. And so learning so much about her life was very important as a kid. I would sit with her in the living room on these two chairs. So chairs became a really important piece of an object for me. Because it allowed me to really think about the moment of connecting with another person in storytelling. So you'll see chairs and ottomans a lot in my work, right? And that is bringing back that familial relationship with my grandmother.
Do you have memories in grade school or high school of, aside from the empowered women that you were looking up to in your
I didn't
family?
really make a lot of art when I was in high school. I was an athlete. I was the track and field. I did cross country, ran the 400 and 800. I did volleyball. I mean, I made art. I mean, when I when I was in high school, we were forced to take home economics where you had to do sewing and all of these things, right? So art was kind of genderized, in some ways. And even though I had art classes, it wasn't something that I thought or saw. I had an uncle, my Uncle Charles, who's still alive, my mother's older brother. He was an illustrator. So my close proximity to someone making art was him. He, designed some illustrations for some album covers for local musicians, and he would do graphics and stuff like that. So that was my close proximity to someone who could have been an artist. I remember a lot growing up, my cousin Johnny and I competing on and like drawing little images based on cartoon characters, like to see who could do them better. But it was never a desire to become an artist until much later in my life.
Right. So when you were younger, were there some individuals that you suddenly looked up to through Ebony Jet, wherever they came from, that boy,
Yeah,
I wish I could be like who?
musicians. There was lots of musicians, that I looked up to. Nina Simone. I'm looking at Diane Carroll, like all of these women who really personified and sort of created platforms of agency. Like Diane Carroll, I remember reading about or seeing her television shows. I think it was about a nurse or something. I can't remember the name of it. Julia, thank you. Julia, which was very sort of incredible, seeing this black woman in, in a leading role. And so, yeah, all of those things that that were outlets from the outside that you would look at, you don't necessarily know at the time what they're doing, but they are leaving impressions on you. And I remember seeing that thinking, wow, how did she do that?
Yeah.
How did she become that person? I've always been the type of kid, even my family tells me when I was younger, I had this ability and aspiration and desire for knowing that there was something bigger out in the world. So when I left home at 16. I left home for love, but I did leave home at 16 to go to Portland, Oregon. And I lived on my own, got a job, went to school, did get a high school degree. Many people thought I didn't, but I did. I finished high school actually in Portland. So I got my high school degree, and then I went to Portland State.
So growing up ethnically, the grade school and high school, what was the mix?
I went to a very diverse high school. I was bused from my grandmother's house into more of an all-white school because of the sport. So I went there because I was an athlete. And so because I was, on varsity and, they kind of courted me for that school to run track and field.
So growing up in terms of the white-black kinds of issues and so forth, were there some real definitive moments there that...
I grew up in a very enriching black community. Even though Camden had its problems with, poverty and all of these things around you, I didn't grow up thinking I was poor. So for me, there was so much livelihood and life and spirit and spirituality and love that, I think when you're a child, you're not seeing the world around you the way other people might be seeing that particular world. So I never knew that I was poor because I've always was provided with everything that I needed. What I wasn't necessarily provided with was more of that really sense of direction of what I wanted to do when I was older. I was pushed into being an athlete, but didn't want to be an athlete, right? So I didn't necessarily find my own sort of journey in life until much later. But I think because I was an athlete, it did give me sort of, that perseverance and strength of will, understanding how to work with people and work with the team, and sort of the focused desire and, fortitude to push through things, because that's what athletes do.
So you came to Portland, Oregon for love, and you enrolled in Portland State pre-law. You thought you wanted to be an attorney then?
I thought I was going to go into law. Worked at Davis Wright Tremaine,
Right.
which the law firm there.
You were there for 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then
so-
tell us about that. First, what was it like coming? I mean, Portland's a pretty white community.
Yes.
What was that? What was that adjustment like? And then I'm going to talk to you about. Wait, what was that? What was that like?
I mean, very white. But I found the black community. I did, which was in Northeast Portland, which Portland has a very incredible, rich black community. So I sort of really delved into that. But I surrounded myself with a lot of musicians and artists. I met very early in my career, or the time I was living there, Thomas Lauderdale,
Sure.
the musician there, from Pink Martini. So some of you might know him.
And one of my
But I also-
closest friends.
Yeah, but I also, for me, one of the reasons why I left home, because it wasn't because of my home was dysfractured. It's because I was a queer, young, black person trying to find space. And so when I found that love, I used that, and my grandmother allowed me to go. And so when I moved to Portland, I created and surrounded myself around that community of lots of diverse, black, queer, youth in Portland. And so Thomas was one of those people, and then there was a lot of artists, even Patrick Abbey. There was a lot of us that that community really provided more of a window into art for me, because there was Portland would always do, I'm not sure if they do it now or still, First Thursdays.
Still do. Yeah.
And so that was my really first exposure into like the art market and world and gallery scene, was because of the First Thursdays and artists. And then I had a friend who is a photographer, Christopher Stark, came to New York for an internship with Nan Golden. And when he came back, while he was here, he really met a lot of different artists and photographers, and he learned about Carrie Mae Weems.
Good.
So when he returned, he realized that Carrie Mae Weems was having an exhibition at Portland Art Museum in 1994. And he immediately told me, you must see this artist's work. So it was my friend Christopher Stark who introduced me to Carrie Mae Weems' work. So we went to the exhibition, and I think it was her table series that really provided a sense of self and was more transformative for me, seeing art that had a story and narrative, but familiarity of myself in the image. And so I really fell in love with those works. I saw myself in those works. I remember immediately going to the gift shop, buying all of the postcards that had her images on them, and then after that going to an art supply store to get some Reeves BFK paper and oil pastels, and later that evening making drawings of Carrie Mae Weems' photographic images, the table series.
The table with the light above it. And
Table with the light above it, the young girl sitting at the end with the father and all of that.
So this was this magical, transformative moment.
So that was more of the transformative moment in my life as an artist, that
So
sort of journey.
So trace now getting to Pratt, Yale education, and then we'll start getting into all the work and stuff. So what happens? So you start drawing the Carrie Mae Weems, and then what happened next?
And then, I made probably about 10, they were like 24 by 30, I think, on these Reeves BFK paper. And I had my friend, Patrick Abbey, and other artist friends who were in the art scene in Portland started seeing these, and my friend Christopher Stark, they would encourage me to show them. And so, because they would be on my sort of living room wall, and when they would come, they're like, "You did this?" I was like, "Oh yeah, they're nothing." Just for me, they were just things that I needed to get out and was connecting to. And so Patrick Abbey, I guess you would say he curated a work of mine at this cafe called the Green Room Cafe in Northwest Portland. And that was my first time exhibiting those works. And then my friend Chris was applying to art school, San Francisco Art Institute and Pratt Institute. And and he encouraged me to apply to those schools. And that's what I did with those works. So that body of work that I made based on the photographic images of Carrie Mae Weems were the works that I got into Pratt with.
So tell us about your experience at Pratt and.
Pratt was amazing. I mean, Pratt Institute for me was probably one of my best experience as an artist because it allowed me to enter and really develop a lot of technical skills. All of the students, no matter what their focus ends up being, come in a foundation year where you're learning light and color design, drawing, three-dimensional design, color theory, all of these things. And so I needed that sort of foundation and base because I didn't have all of the training as like many of the other students who had come straight from high school. I was an older student at this time. I entered Pratt, I was about 23, going on 24. So I had the life experience and maturity. But I also had the vigor and passion to work hard and be in my studio a lot. So I was known to be the type of student who was always in their studio because I felt when I entered Pratt that there was a level that I needed to sort of be up on, so I would always work a little harder or longer, just put a little more extra work into what I was doing or making. Pratt Institute also allowed me to stay on campus a lot. I was an RA, then I was a resident director, and then I became part of the student activities. I was very involved in all of the student activities on campus, just part of the Students' Arts League, inviting many artists to come and do lectures. I remember inviting Leonardo Drew to come and speak. And I met him and I would always ask him questions about how do you become an artist like yourself? And he told me, I remember, he said, "Young lady, just make the work."
Yeah.
And I remember that, just make the work.
So then from there you went to Yale.
So from there I did a summer program at Yale Norfolk where I met Sean Landers, Lisa Yuskavage, worked under Sam Messer, and met John Curran there, Cecily Brown. They were all my teachers at Yale Norfolk. And Lisa Yuskavage encouraged me to apply to Yale, and she wrote my recommendation. So that's how I got into Yale, because of Lisa Yuskavage.
And one last thing, the late Mel Bachner They just thought you were a fabulous student.
He and I had this very interesting relationship, which I knew about Mel Bachner before going to Yale. Because while I was at Pratt, I studied under Howard Buchwald, who was this insane abstract expressionist. And so he would always teach us about all these abstract expressionists and conceptual artists. He hated the conceptual artists. He hated Mel Bachner, but he taught us about Mel Bachner. So when I went to Yale, I had a Mel Bachner book. And so I knew Mel Bachner was there. And when the first day of class, I had my book under me. I was like, I'm going to get Mel Bachner to sign this book. So when I went into class, he was doing this seminar class. And I asked if he could sign the book. He was surprised that I had his book. He was actually surprised that I knew about him. But when I mentioned Howard Buchwald, he was like, oh, yes. He hates me. I said, can you sign my book? I said, he taught me all about you. And so I would talk to him about his art. And so that's how Mel Bachner and I relationship developed. And I would always have him in my studio. So even though the way Yale was set up, you had your critiques during the week, but they wanted you to rotate and see all of the teachers. But I would put Mel Bachner, Mel Bachner, Mel Bachner, Mel Bachner. And he would say, you would have to stop having me come by your studio.
Wonderful.
So we develop a nice correspondence.
So we have a large collection of Mel Bachner work and traveled that exhibition nationally. And at our 56,000-foot warehouse in Portland, we have a 4,000-foot exhibition area. And last summer, we put a lot of Mel Bachner's work up. He had fallen and was recovering. And whenever some groups would go there, I'd stop in. I'd usually call him and FaceTime, and he was delighted. His widow tells us that it sort of pepped him up a bit. And so Mickalene came, and we got him on the phone, and they talked away. And
Yeah.
it was really a precious moment that he was still having some issues, and to know that he maybe helped this incredible young student become the superstar that she is now.
Yeah,
So,
we also had the same trainer.
yeah. So let's talk about after Yale, and you went to Australia.
Yeah, I did a student exchange, which was in Australia. And one of the reasons why I chose Australia, because it was very intentional for me to want to study Aboriginal art. I was, at the time, very much interested in dot paintings. And I was doing these abstract all over dot paintings. You see, that's why it carries through still in my work today. And so I chose Australia so that I can work with some of the Aboriginal artists. And I went to Southern Cross Uni because they had, it was the only university that had Aboriginal studies. And so I went there and studied for 6 months.
So you come back.
And learned about all of the Aboriginal, Emily Kingwari, all of them. It was like I immersed into the ways in which they made work, and the Dreamtime painting, the understanding of it, the spirituality, the connecting with the land and sort of the body and space around you, and met some incredible artists and would sit with them just in space and time and not talk. Just to be in space.
So you come back and you start really the work that evolved to the work that we know now, and your relationship with your mom. She was a major, the word you've used.
Yeah, my mother
and,
was, she transitioned in 2012. She was an incredible spiritual and beautiful person. She died young at 61. But she exposed me to art, and she was one who really had a great love for art because she had a lot of friends who were creatives. So she was always, even though, you know, she always put my brother and I into like art activities, and I enjoy them. Like even when we're in Newark, went to programs at Newark Museum, and enjoyed making paper mache things and that nature. And so before my mother died, I had the opportunity to use her in my work quite often. After I moved back from Portland, our relationship, the estranged relationship that I had with her, got better. Yeah.
So what was it like? I think it's fascinating to have a model that was your mother in a lot of these nude works that you did. And so what was that like?
I mean, you understand beauty very young when you have a person in your life where beauty is something that they possess. And then something not only that they possess, but how people treat them because they're beautiful. So it becomes all about your concept of your self-identity, your world of understanding. And so I think that's why it becomes a very important aspect in which I pull from, because I was always thinking of myself and comparing, holding that mirror up in relationship to my mother's beauty.
She said, happy birthday to a beautiful woman. She said, "My daughter, you have made me the model of the art world."
That was nice. That was beautiful. I remember making the film of her as another extension of our relationship, because once my mother got sick, I wasn't photographing her anymore. So I wanted to figure out a way of telling her story and creating a portrait of a person through a different medium. So that's how the film came about. I never really thought that it would reach to the levels that it did with HBO and sort of on the film circuit and screenings. And today it's still screened in universities and other film festivals. People still want to see it. But I think I contribute that to the power of my mother and who she was.
Wonderful. Let's talk about, start getting into the art and stuff.
You're going to ask some of these questions from the young girls?
You will. So in terms of the print work, you've worked with a lot of different publishers. Maybe more so than most artists tend to favor one publisher and tend to work with them. You've worked with half a dozen.
I think it's important for artists to diversify their experiences, and I think different publishers are capable of doing different things. My first publisher was Durham Press, and then I started working with Tandem, and then Brand X. Well, no, I apologize. My first was Brand X through Chris Neptune of Neptune Fine Arts. And I worked with her, and we did, which will come up here, the series with the Oprah ones and Condoleezza Rice. So I made those with Chris Neptune Fine Arts and Brand X. So Brand X, and then they split, and then I started working with Brand X, then Durham Press, Tandem, and tried to work with Pace. The timing was never right, but we will. And then always wanted to work with Two Palms. That was sort of my highest. That's where I wanted to land. And so I think this opportunity really gave me that. I would always walk around the art fairs and thought, one day I'll work with Two Palms.
We'll come back to Two Palms in a second here, but in terms of your paintings, the other kinds of works you do, and the prints, how do you wake up and say, I want to do prints this week, or paintings, or
well, I'm trained as a printmaker. When I was at Pratt, that was one of the mediums that I gravitated towards. The process for me is about systems and also about language. And I love the material. I love sort of the collaborative nature of it, working with the masters, but also sort of the silo nature, working by myself. So my main focus of printmaking was lithography. So that was my focus, even with the stone and sanding over and over again and lifting. You gotta get the crank, push it through. I liked the lithography because it was laborious. I liked that there was this methodology to it. And sometimes you had an idea and it sort of went in a different direction and you couldn't really control it. And so there was this sensibility with printmaking that I enjoy, that process. So when I went to Yale, I became a printmaking TA with Rochelle Feinstein. And did printmaking and painting. So printmaking was always a part of my practice because collage was always a part of my practice. And I always tried to figure out a ways of intersecting and integrating printmaking and a painting language for myself. And so through silkscreen, I figured that out. I figured out how to do that more so with silkscreen and less with lithography. Even though I could, my brain was not necessarily connecting how to bring printmaking and painting into the process of my practice.
So with your work, you have an interesting combination of some full-figured women of color, and yet also a number of these
full-figured black women, you can say that.
Black women, and then you also have the Jet magazine black women of these idealized, gorgeous figures. To what gives? Why?
Why not? Because that's who I am, and because we're gorgeous and beautiful, and it's about celebrating who we are and agency and validation. And I'm interested in. I mean, there's so much chaos and trauma in the world, and my life comes from chaos and trauma that I want to make art about. That's the opposite of that. About joy and leisure. And I think mostly with the black body, the fascination was through art history of not seeing that, specifically in the Western canon when it came to European iconic images like Le Déjeuner or Manet or Courbet's Grand Odalisque, right? You would always see a lot of the black figures in servitude positions. And I wanted to see us in the leading role because the form of desire was always presented and always there, but those images was not put forth. Like Manet painted images of women of color. But historically, historians decided not to really celebrate those images or talk about them. So it was a particular erasure in history when you have selective individuals, even like today, who want to remove truth and aspect of narratives from printed matter, or and I think it's actually a disjustice to the artists. Manet made these images, but there were some particular historians who decided that those images were not of value. Manet didn't say they weren't of value. The historian decided that they were not of value. So our history is always wrought with false ideas because that wasn't the artist's choice. And I think that's why Denise Morel show, the Black Model, was just so incredibly important because it really brought forth all of these works, all of these images of the Black model in history through these artists. And working with Denise Morel throughout the years, with her and Sarah Lewis, really allowed me to understand the importance to continue the work in regards to the Black model.
When you do your work with these interior series and these Black beautiful women, do you end up picking the image of the woman first and then do the interior series around it, or the interior series then you figure you'll plug somebody into it?
It's usually a combination. It works through collage, actually. I use collage as a way of drawing and seeing in composition and thinking and formal aspects of making sense of my work. It's a way of drawing for me. I really love that about Romare Bearden's work. He speaks about that collage of, he speaks about his scissors as this tool, apparatus of, as one would use a pencil and paper. Mm-hmm. So collage for me is the same in the way in which I formalize and think about my ideas. So first, normally I choose the model. In the past, most of the models have been friends or lovers or ex-lovers. Mostly because close proximity and the relationship and the intimacy is easier to photograph someone that you're close with, for me anyway. And then using those images and deciding what images from those photographs I want to use as a painting. So photography became a way of seeing for me, to develop the story and the idea, and then I started building up the spaces. So the interiors started to take shape probably shortly after my studio museum residency, where I was in studio in Brooklyn in a basement with a lot of other artists. And I needed to really figure out how to make my work on my own terms, in my own way, with limited resources, and with the environment and things that were around me. So what was around me was my materials, and I could put them compositionally in these spaces and build them up. And so that's how the interior spaces started. And then I was looking a lot at West African photographers like Seydou Keita and Sita Bey with studio photography, and use that as sort of a way into setting up my studio when I would photograph the models.
When did you first start using the rhinestones and doing all that? How'd that come about?
Well, I always use traditional materials and fabrics through collage making and assemblage. And I think it was mostly when I was in graduate school. I couldn't really always afford oil paints. And so I was starting to go to Michael's craft store to just for actually collage materials. And then working through pointillism and Aboriginal art, really trying to find this middle ground between what was considered high art and low art, wanting to find that same intersection with materiality between oil paint and craft material.
So let's talk, we have a few more minutes left, about the spectacular, amazing works that you did for the print fair. So again,
Oh, they could go see that. We don't have to talk about that.
what was it like? Again, how this started was, as I said, that we came up with this idea of our funding an artist doing something, and the first thought was Mickalene, and this is a little bit on steroids, so what was it like working with Two Palms? And no one's
working with Two Palms was fantastic, and I'm really excited for that relationship that has developed, and that we're already embarking on a whole other series of works out of this works here. All of those collages that you see out there are going to be limited edition prints, which is amazing. So all of these works that you see that they're actually going to be prints, and some objects will be developed out of that. Working with Two Palms allowed me more of awareness, I think, and possibility of understanding what you could do with printmaking, other aspects of working with paper, and what is printmaking, and sort of the constraints, limitations, technical attributes around those constraints and limitations that become opportunity, which was exciting for me. So going into their workspace and seeing, the Mel Bachner's and Schwabelas and all of these sort of ways in which you can work really excited me and allowed me to think about how to expand sort of my print practice in a way that would become more three-dimensional. Because I've always had in my mind this way of wanting to push my work beyond sort of the two-dimension. And I started doing that with, some of you may have seen my show with Yancey Richardson with the photographic works, where I was taking the dye sub photographic images and allowing the collages now to become relief-like. So I wanted to play with that here. And I also did that with the project I did with Carolina Niche project, with the mirrors and sort of like this folding, the allowing sort of the shapes to have a different meaning and objectivity to them. And wanting to really think about how my interiors could be a print, a print that was immersive, that you can walk into, and sort of using all the different attributes of printmaking. I mean, we have etching, we've used from, pulp paper to silk screen, some woven, materials with silk screen painted, cast pulp paper with the books and the plants, to layering and UV sort of printing with silk screening. So a lot of you get close. There's a quality to it that is relieved on the texture. To handmade paper, I think one is called Jumichi, something. Really beautiful texture paper. So something like this you see, really wanting to, like you see these interiors, see the eagle. I use a lot of repetition. The eagle's taking flight in this space. And also when you get to the books, I also wanted things that were objects that you can see but can't touch. Unlike, they're very tactile. And one of the things for the books, the reason why they're monochromatic, I just had this conceptual theory just because the whole idea of what's happening to Black literature and sort of books today, of wanting to be removed from schools. So a lot of the books are the books that would be removed from schools that are in the space by incredible writers like Alice Walker to Nikki Giovanni to Angela Flournoy, to Roxane Gay. Books that we must read and that shape our history and have shaped my history and sort of persona of who I am as a Black queer woman. So all of those books have meaning. But I want you to kind of like sort of look into, so to have almost this invisibility to them by making them monochromatic. And so the idea is like, you can tell a book by its cover.
You had a major show at the Broad Museum in LA. The Barnes, spectacular. The
Yes.
Hayward in London right now.
All About Love, which is also bell hooks in the book. It's a book here.
What's it like when you walked into the Broad or you walked into the Barnes where I was with you there? What's it feel like?
Amazing. Incredible. About time. Finally. Well deserved.
Do you ever
It
look
took
at,
too long.
do you ever look at working?
It shouldn't stop. Keep it going. Keep it coming. More to do. More to say. More to make.
So when you walk in and see those works, do suddenly you have lots of memories of, oh my gosh, I remember we were working on this and that, or
No, I love it. I love seeing my own works. It really informs the future works.
do you ever
I
look
love
at works?
seeing that. I love seeing and knowing that, oh, that was heavy-handed. I shouldn't have painted that way. Oh, that's okay. It's painted that way. I'll do it better next time. That's why it's fantastic being an artist. You can make mistakes and fix it tomorrow.
So
You can make a mistake today and tomorrow you can fix it. And it's
you're-
okay if they don't see it or if I see it.
You're very close to Derek Adams
Yeah, he's like a brother.
and a number of other artists.
You got to ask one of those questions from
Okay,
these students.
so,
it's going to be on you. It's not going to
So-
be on me.
What experience or reason made you want your art to become accessible, especially in this art market?
To reach a larger audience and demographic of people, that's why I think printmaking is incredible. Because there's different levels, brackets, financial brackets of printmaking, and printmaking is a viable tool for artists and sustainable of allowing us outside of our practice to sort of see it differently, but also create a new audience for that and have it accessible. There are family members of mine who are able to afford art, right? I love that. I love getting a text from someone or someone walk up to me and say, oh, I purchased your print, or I have your art, and they're excited about my art, and I'm in my mind thinking they have this large painting, and they're like, oh, I have this really intimate print, and I even love that even better because they have something that's very special and meaning to them, and that they're a collector of my work. I think it's very important for artists to have their work accessible to as many different types of people.
Sure.
For conversation, for inspiration, aspiration, all of these things that provide context for conversation and storytelling and meaning, historical legacy. It shouldn't reside in sort of an elitist space.
So back to Derek and the other artists that you're close to right now, how do they influence you or you influence them? Is there a dynamic in that relationship that helps you become a better artist?
Of course. You must surround yourself with artists that you feel that are just as talented or even better. I think instinctually and naturally, there's a synergy that happens with an art when you're around each other. And that's inevitable, I think. And there's always a continued dialogue. But that's movements of art. That's how genres of sort of different art practices have been created. You know, when you think of you know, from Fauvism to conceptual art to abstract art, all of those were created by collectives and communities of artists, friends, working in close proximity, but also having dialogue with each other.
And lastly,
So I think it's inevitable that there's a similarity or thread of influence within artists who you know each other, or that might be sort of thinking about similar ideas.
if there were a artist that is no longer living that you could wave a wand and have a conversation with, who would that be?
Faith Ringgold. I've known her, and I wish I had the opportunity to really sit and talk with her. Yeah. So it would be her, for sure.
And I guess one last question was, how was
That's
work?
right. Get it. You point.
That's right.
You tell him.
Okay.
Come
for the
on,
students.
Jordan.
So
Ask those
how
questions.
How was working with prints and paper and sculptures form affected your practice and structural forms? How was working with prints and paper and structural form affected your practice? Since we're at a print fair.
I can give a little anecdote of a story. Even though I started making prints professionally with Brand X and Durham Press, it wasn't until I started working with Tandem Press that I saw the full understanding how I can bring printmaking into my full process and practice. So I was working with them in Wisconsin, loved it, and we were taking my collages and moving them around and printing, and it was something in the way we were doing it. I remember going back to my studio and saying, how easy is it to build a silkscreen practice in your studios? I said to my assistant or project manager, Jeff Freeland, who still works with me today, who was very instrumental in this happening. And he said, oh, we can do it. Why? I said, I had the best experience at Tandem Press, and I want to be able to make my work in the way that I made those prints and collages with them. So I rebuilt my studio. So primarily of the studio practice and my studio is all printmaking. So I think that's how it informs you. When you have a good experience making your work, it allows you to look and see your work in a new way and find accessibility in ways in which you can formalize new ideas. And so it was like cutting the big paper. I saw the possibility of being able, I saw it became very valuable and so when I did that transition, so a lot of my work today, you see, many people think that they think the paintings are collage. The only other material that's on there is the rhinestone, but it's all paint. It's through silkscreen and layering and collage that, you know, that sort of practice is now a huge part of my work. Sculpture is too, I think, what this commission has done for me, has allowed me to really think about my interior spaces in a different way and how I may reconstruct them. I've always wanted to sort of kind of contend with Tom Wesselman and how he makes his structures and maquettes. So this was a lot of that coming through. So I think the possibility of creating these works with two palms has allowed me to think about sculpture. I mean, we've even talked about, I don't even want to say, but the stacking of books, of how that can be a sculptural sort of element, you know, and, you know, like large scale, you know what I mean? Just like really, all of these ideas are starting to formalize. Thinking of the shelf as another sculptural element, because I use shelves as a way of positioning, and so there's a lot that's coming out of this. There are a lot of new works that will be developed, I think.
Great. At the exhibitions we have around the country, what I always say to people is, you know, you don't need to know anything about an artist. Just look at the work and let your mind and heart soar and just feel the work. And yet I think all of you today, like me, when you learned a bit about the artist and the background, it just adds a whole other dimension. And
Why did you start collecting my work?
because when I saw your work, like it does with everything you've done, it just takes my breath away.
Thank
I
you.
just feel this emotion inside, this tightness that just, wow. And I guess to finish
And what was
up,
the first one you purchased?
from Tandem,
Tandem.
those works from there's all of them, and now the paintings, and now this work. The last couple of months have been a lot of conversations, a lot of work, a lot of complicated dynamics going on, but no one's ever thought about that before. And that was a combination of this artistic genius, okay, the technical wizardry of Two Palms Press, the working relationship with your staff, the other resources
Yeah.
you've used, and so forth, all coming together to do this for us.
Yeah.
And when we walked in, before it all opened up, I just couldn't. I was speechless. And I think we're all so
No, I
appreciative.
thank you for this opportunity,
Well-
because it was like really, I think, like you're speaking about, it took over 20 people to make a lot of this happen with my studio, Two Palms, you know, and IFPDA, like all of us coming together in constant communication. And some of it was, you know, unforeseeable, you know,
Sure.
but here we are.
Well, thank you all for coming. This is
Yeah.
the Mickalene Thomas.
Yeah, thanks.